on a wintry Tuesday, and yeah, there's a bit of it about, actually, winter. That is, not just the colds and flus, but it's the time of the year where it's perhaps a little bit more challenging to be cheerful. Reasons to be cheerful is a shorter list, and I know that apparently this is a real thing. Seasonal affective disorder, the winter blues, has now got a clinical name. So perhaps we've got more reason than at other times of the year for depression, for the old black dog to come pay a visit. And hey, it does happen to the best of us. It happens to most people at some stage of their life. But rather than just shrug and get on with it, what are some of the strategies that we can use to beat the blues in this regard? John Cowan joins us on the program. Cheer up, John. I know
you're a therapy yourself, Andrew. I mean, you just chase the blues away. How can one be depressed chatting with you?
Is that a challenge? Or
you mentioned seasonal affective disorder. Yeah. I can recall moving from the Bay of Islands back to Auckland.
Yeah,
and the Bay of Islands sparkles.
Yeah,
there was a very, very predictable weather pattern that in the morning it would be clear.
Mm-hmm.
I always used to recommend to people visiting the Bay of Islands, do whatever you want to do early in the morning, because it was nearly every morning was brilliant and beautiful, and I'd walk to work along the beach. And I moved back to Auckland, and I must admit, I'm a loyal Aucklander. Yeah. That'll stick in the craw of some people, but I like the place. But honestly, the weather here from now through till Christmas can be grey and depressing. And I found my mood just toppling. And I reckon it was genuinely that reduced level of light that you have here.
Yeah.
It's interesting, in Scandinavia, they don't get seasonal affective disorder north of the capital because it's snowy and over winter, and so they are actually surrounded by lots of brightness and light. But in the bigger cities, they do plummet into seasonal affective disorder just because of the lack of light. But anyhow, that's not exactly what I wanted to talk about today.
I just wanted to say, are you sure it was seasonal affective disorder, or did you just have a case of Jeffovitis? Because I think that also, if it isn't a clinical condition, it should be. Because honestly, for people that are stuck in New Zealand's largest city, sometimes you just need to get out of town. The problem is everybody wants to do it the same weekend. But yeah, don't start me on this. On to the topic that you actually wanted to talk about.
Oh no, look, on Sunday I was just stuck for hours trying to get back. I had a lovely weekend in Taupo with my daughter, and coming back into Auckland on that motorway on Sunday afternoon. I don't know why everyone thinks, it's a Sunday afternoon, let's go and just park on the motorway and go nowhere.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's not what I wanted to talk about, but a good digression.
Mm-hmm.
Depression is a wretched thing, and it does nip at the heels at a lot of us. And sometimes it's so serious, it's debilitating. It can be very, very serious. But at a lot of times, it's just like a miserable backdrop to life, and we just plod on. It's just like driving in the rain. You put your windscreen wipers on. You're not enjoying the journey, but you know you can keep on going.
Yeah.
It's like mental wet socks. I hate wet socks, and it's just sort of like, But what helps? Well, I remember an encouraging meta-study that I read years ago. A meta-study is where they take a whole lot of research and put it side by side.
Yeah.
And they looked at a huge range of therapies for depression. And the surprising news was, everything worked. That didn't mean everything worked for everybody, and they didn't all equally work well. But the study showed that all of them seemed to have a positive effect.
Wow.
I can remember two of them. One of them was whistling therapy. I can't imagine, whistling might help my mood, but I'm sure it would do terrible things for the mood to everyone else.
Exactly. Everyone else is angry. You're slightly happier, and everybody else is angry. Yeah, there's a balance in that, I think.
My wife is sad at the moment, not depressed, but sad because Michael Mosley, a British doctor and broadcaster, died. And she was greatly helped by one of his programs as she was leading up to her lung transplant. But one of the therapies for depression that I remember he recommended was singing. Singing every day, singing in the shower. And I'm sure that would have been on the list. Horse riding therapy, musical instrument therapy, all these things.
I'm not sure it's good for the horse, although some horses like a good canter, I've been told, theoretically.
Yeah. Well, actually, I remember Ronald Reagan saying there's something about about the outside of a horse that's good for the inside of a man. He definitely believed that riding a horse was therapeutic.
What about
I love looking at horses, but I find them personally terrifying.
does that
But,
does
that's
that
so big.
metaphor reverse something about the inside of the horse? No, probably.
I think you're talking about French cuisine.
Yes, yes,
Anyhow,
exactly.
um, but so all these different things work maybe not as well as everything, but the one that the two that they put at the top of the list was a course of drugs prescribed to give your mood, give you a holiday from those bad feelings.
Yep, bit of a circuit
And
breaker.
yeah, and when you're feeling slightly better, a talking therapy
Okay.
to give you insights and skills to be able to hold those things off, hold the depression at bay. Hey, look, that was years ago that I read that,
Mhm.
and I'm not an expert, and so maybe there's better research these days, but I just thought that was interesting. Years ago, I was burnt out,
Yeah.
and I went to a psychologist friend called Renier Greff. He's a great guy. You should get him on the show sometime. He's
Okay.
a great guy.
Mhm.
And he talked about raising my resilience to stress.
Yeah.
And because stress, of course, is a huge trigger to depression and anxiety and just about everything that ails you.
Yeah.
And so he talked about raising my resilience in various ways. And one of the things which surprised me was he talked about pleasurable input,
Okay.
giving yourself more energy to be able to give more of yourself into your family, into your job, into your workplace.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of things. I mean, I think I sent you through a list of different things that I thought of, but it's not an exhaustive list. But learning, I just love browsing through YouTube videos on all sorts of topics so that I can, you know, talk about arcane subjects and things. But no, I just love learning. I
When you
think
said
it's
learning, I didn't think you were going to go to YouTube. Seriously, that is lower hanging fruit. But there's some good stuff out there. No,
oh
snoozing is
yeah,
also on the list, though. Can I put my highlighter
snoozing.
through snoozing? This sounds like a great afternoon.
Snoozing is a fantastic thing to do. Because of the odd sort of a career that I've had, I often work in the evenings,
Yeah.
and I can remember a minister, saying that recommended doing what he called a United Nations Day. I've no idea where he got the term, but he talked about dividing the day into three: a
Yeah.
morning, an afternoon, and an evening,
Yeah.
and give two to your job. And
Oh.
so if you're going to be working in the evening, don't feel bad about being at home in the afternoon to greet the kids as they come home from school.
Okay.
Two of the three parts of the day you can give to your work, but one third you keep back for yourself. By the way, a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about, like having a pet or taking time out to play music and
Yep.
things like that, some of you will have a degree of evangelical martyr complex to overcome. You
Yep.
know, the sort of guilt. Oh no, I found myself enjoying myself. I should be feeling slightly guilty about that.
Yeah.
But you can be doing these apparently selfish things for incredibly selfless motivations because, as Renier explained to me, when you put more of this pleasure into yourself, you're giving more of yourself to give to others.
Yeah.
It's maintenance, it's pepping yourself up to be able to be a better parent, a better worker, a better partner, to be able to do whatever is, really important in your life
In some
because
ways,
you've got energy from these things.
in some ways, it makes sense. If you're depressed, have more fun. I mean, it is easier said than done sometimes, especially
Oh,
if we're in that clinical depression. But
yeah.
there's nothing selfish about enjoying life so that you've got the energy to give life and fun to other people, right?
Oh, yes, actually, it's talking about fun when you're depressed is it's, when you are depressed, other people having fun is annoying.
It is. Yeah.
It must be like being a fish under ice when people are ice skating above you.
Yeah.
They're all having fun and you're just feeling miserable because of all the
Cold.
noise.
Yeah.
But I mean, eh, some of the things that are very reliable at lifting moods when you're depressed are things like having a pet. I
Yeah.
used to refer to my Labrador as my furry Valium. They're wonderfully therapeutic when they're not pooing on your carpet
Yeah.
and biting the neighbor. I mean, those things can add to your stress, but in general, they're wonderful. Reading, and I'm not talking about reading the annual general report from your work or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, curling up with an absolutely worthless novel with very little redeeming value. Something which is just for the sake of entertainment.
Yep.
Gardening, if that's your thing. I mean, I hate gardening. My plants hate me. The ones that are still alive hiss at me. But I mean, for some of you, I know you love getting into the garden. Coffee with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should be able to get that on prescription from your doctor. I think it's so good. And so, yeah, making time for, getting out with a friend. Gadgets.
Okay.
One of the things I definitely remember after seeing my psychologist friend when I was burnt out was that he recommended that I should go and get a gadget that I enjoyed.
Okay.
And so long before smartphones, I had they used to call them PDAs, personal digital assistant, a Palm Pilot. Remember those?
I do remember those.
I used to love fiddling on them. It was fantastic. You could be sitting there taking notes in church, pretending you're taking notes, you're actually playing some game. It was fantastic. And everybody with smartphones knows that now.
Yeah.
Fishing, again, if that's your thing, art and craft, leisure. I think for, blokes that are listening today, you're wanting to be a good dad, a good husband. To do that, you need that boat. You honestly, your kids need to see you disappearing out over the horizon with your mates without them, so that you can be a better dad. And I'm quite serious about this.
No,
I
totally.
mean, it's maintenance.
I mean, some of these items, and you lost me at boat, honestly, because
I'm not a boat person.
no, exactly. Because for some people, they're going, "Gosh, wouldn't it be nice to do all these things?" Some of them cost a bit more than others, and boats probably reasonably high up the list in that regard.
Absolutely.
However, a whole bunch of the stuff that you mentioned don't need to cost money, and actually, if it's going to help us kick the blues and help us to be nicer people to be with, honestly, even if it's a small amount of money, it's probably a good investment in your mental health and well-being, right?
That's right. For the sake of your partner, for the sake of your kids.
Yeah.
Carve out that, and all of it takes time, all of it takes money, but you've got to cut through that myth that an easier day is coming. You've got to actually say, right, if I'm going to do this, it means that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to claim back this for my time. I'm going to mark out this block in my diary. So if anyone says, "Can I do something?" I'm saying, "No, I'm sorry. I have a prior commitment." Even if that prior commitment is to yourself, have a nap.
A nap, exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing, John, about our conversation today is I know there's going to be a group of people, probably blokes, that are going, "Yes, I know I needed a boat. And God told me through Radio Rhema and through John Cowan that a boat is something that I need because it's not a selfish thing. It's for the good of my children." So you've blessed so many people today with your wisdom.
That's right. Including the sponsor of this segment, the boat retailer. No.
Hey,
well, first of all, try walking on the water.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work,
work out, back in the boat. Exactly.
Yeah. There you go. Put an extra spiritual twist on it.
John, thank you for your wisdom and insight. As always, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.